Welcome to the ACC Panic Room alongside Lauren Brownlow. I'm Joe Ovies. We're headed into week 3 of the ACC college football season. Lauren, who is your biggest disappointment of the season so far?
Like in the ACC specifically?
Mm-hmm. In the ACC specifically.
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say Pitt because I was always kind of skeptical of what they would do. Maybe Louisville. Louisville would be up there for me at this point because you expected to see them show like more signs of life.
Yeah.
And it just hasn't happened. But honestly, like other than maybe like Virginia Tech is doing about what I expected it to do. They'll go into the ACC and beat a bunch of teams they shouldn't because that's what they do when they take a bad loss. Maybe not a bunch of teams they shouldn't, but I'm telling you, they will beat at least one team they're not supposed to after taking a stupid loss because they do that every year. Remember, they like won the league one year after they lost to James Madison at home. Like, it's dumb. Virginia maybe would be on there somewhere too. Boston College, oh.
There it is. I was waiting for it.
I'm in denial still.
I was waiting for it. I was waiting for you to say Boston College. Boston College probably is the biggest disappointment so far this season for two reasons. Jeff Hafley, who we all like on this program. You know, Giglio and I have talked to Jeff Hafley a couple times. He's a great dude, fun to talk to. You know, Phil Dracovic and how we talked about last season. It was, man, imagine if he didn't get hurt and how sneaky good Boston College was. But as we found out in like the early parts of the season, Dracovic has no offensive line in front of him. I mean, they're getting to him, and it's becoming a frustrating problem for the Eagles. I'm not saying they can't improve as the season goes on, but so far they are not looking like a team that might be sneaky in the Atlantic, and things are kind of coalescing around the top 3 in the Atlantic, at least based on what we've seen, especially with Sam Hartman's return at Wake Forest.
No, their O-line is garbage, and they can't run the ball either. And I think, you know, and I've seen Boston College fans saying this as well, like, I think that Dracovic is a little shook at this point, you know, and that happens when you're playing behind a bad offensive line and you're constantly under pressure as a quarterback, especially when you got hurt the year before. Like, and it's sad to see though, because he was just so tough and like fun to watch, you know, before whatever this monstrosity is happening to him right now. But yeah, like they'd be up there for me certainly because it's not that they've lost, it's just they've looked like utter garbage and their offense has been terrible.
They've looked bad. They've absolutely looked bad. All right, so going into this weekend, North Carolina is off, getting ready for the Notre Dame game.
How many points do they give up to off?
Wow, Lauren.
Sorry, don't get so sensitive.
Hey, all I know is that was Lauren Brownlow who said that. Not
it's just a joke.
No, I'm just saying I'm a little sensitive because the Carolina haters are out in full force because they're mad at me for pointing out that, hey, maybe your defense needs to get better.
Oh, no, they're mad at me too, believe me.
Okay, all right, just double checking on that.
Not that many of them, thankfully. Most Carolina fans, I think, also that have eyeballs understand what the critique is. Because we also said last week that, you know, they stepped up when they needed to and they made some plays. And look, there's nowhere to go but up from here. Like, really, there's not. I can't. And next week you'll play a Notre Dame team that has no offense.
Exactly. That's going to be the fascinating part in 2 weeks when they take on the Irish. You know, look, Marcus Freeman's start as the Irish head coach has gone from optimism. You know how they you know his first game in the bowl, the offseason with the videos and the hype and the youthful exuberance, and you know they're going in the right direction. While Brian Kelly was making embarrassments of himself with LSU and continues to do so to a certain extent. But now that we've seen 2 games of, hey, you know what? You good job, good effort against Ohio State. But that Marshall game exposed with a quarterback injury too. But even without it, exposed just how they have zero offensive identity. And if they're going to win games, they're going to have to do it getting ugly. And I don't know if they can do that against North Carolina and their offense. I mean, unless North Carolina's defense gets pushed around, and it's entirely possible they can, I see North Carolina winning that game at Chapel Hill.
I don't still, but we'll see. And the reason I don't is because I think Notre Dame's defense is going to be a big step up from anything they've seen so far. And that's not going to be easy. I'm not saying they won't score. I think they will. I think I said even this past weekend that it'll probably play out much like the last matchup did in Chapel Hill between them where, you know, Carolina hung in and tough, but Notre Dame just played the ball hog game, you know, hold the ball the whole time and not let North Carolina's offense have it. And that worked. The defense couldn't get off the field. They didn't let him have explosive plays, but that's kind of what Notre Dame wanted in the first place. But this is why Notre Dame is the worst. The first time in forever, they have a coach who's likable, and now they stink. Why are you like this? Just be good for Marcus Freeman. We all love Marcus Freeman. Ugh.
Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, NC State's hosting Texas Tech. as our guy Steven over at Back in the Pack pointed out, oh my goodness, a Power 5 non-conference game is actually happening for the Wolfpack without some weirdness going on. But I know State's a favorite in this game. The concern would be the offensive output of Texas Tech, even with their backup QB. They got into a shootout, overtime win over Houston this past weekend. Texas Tech, as is historic with Texas Tech, can put up numbers.
I was going to say, I'd love to find a year where they're not like a good offensive team. I can't remember it. It doesn't seem to matter who's there or what's happening. Their defense is usually bad to average, and their offense is amazing.
I mean, you want to feel old. I mean, the last time NC State took on Texas Tech, Phillip Rivers and T.A. McClendon were on the roster for NC State, and those are pretty much like offensive explosions on both ends, especially the T.A. McClendon game. I think it was the T.A. McClendon game at Texas Tech, which was like he broke records, if I remember off the top of my head. But the one thing that if you're an NC State fan looking at the offensive production from Texas Tech is that they do turn the ball over. And this is going to be another test for NC State's defense, which has come in and, based on the limited sample size that we've seen so far, has done its job for the most part. Charleston Southern, different level that we're going to see against Texas Tech.
Yeah, it is, but I'm actually more curious to see their offense because, let's be honest, they've had some slow starts in games, and that goes back not just this year, but past years as well.
That's the thing, Lauren.
Yeah, and so, how long are you going to make your defense keep you in the game, and how long can they keep them in the game by themselves if they're not getting any point support? So that'll be interesting for me to see too.
Yeah, so what you just referenced is the thing that I feel that State fans are going to have to get comfortable with. This is not, like, if we're going to do the comparison between NC State and North Carolina, right? NC State is not, to me, an explosive team. NC State is a slow and steady, not sexy, just kind of, like,
which
they're going to put
work
up
against a team like Texas Tech because you don't want to give them the football a lot. But
to me, NC State under Devin Leary is about making the plays that you need when you need to make them. That's just been their MO, even going back to the 2020 season, where you had Bailey Hockman having to be in the same situation, just make the plays that you need to make. So I think we just have to get comfortable talking about that with NC State and not expecting this kind of offensive fireworks that you might see at North Carolina with Drake May.
Right. It's a philosophical, I think, just difference between, and you see it across the country too, different. Notre Dame is more of a let's hold the ball for a long time type of offense. Someone compared them to Virginia, and I was like, it's kind of analogous to that, yes, because they have a great defense and they want to, make you work and stay on the field as long as possible on offense, even if they don't score every single time. And I think State's philosophy is kind of similar to that, but they still want to do better in the red zone. Mm-hmm. And I think the tricky part with that is that anything can go wrong on a drive, right? And so that's where I guess that's the critique of that philosophy, is that you're asking a lot of college players to kind of execute every time, not get in bad downs and distances and everything else. You can't make mistakes when you play that way, right? And so that'll be interesting. I'd love to see them mix in a few downfield plays though. Like, that's not the end of the world. And I think, maybe they will against a defense like that. Who knows? But it would be nice to see them kind of get on the scoreboard early and put a little less pressure on that defense, because it's like the same NC State game playing out most weeks for the last couple of years.
It's Russian Doll season 3, I guess, if you wanted to go that direction.
That show's on season 3?
No, I'm kidding. This would be season 3. It's a NC State.
I was like, I missed something.
Over and over. No. I haven't seen season 2 yet.
I didn't even know there was one.
I'm too busy watching She-Hulk. With Megan Thee Stallion on repeat. Regardless, one ongoing storyline. We'll close on this. Dave Dorn was asked about it this week regarding the Nebraska job. Look, Giulio and I talked about this after Nebraska lost to Northwestern in Ireland. Like, because of the Midwest connections, the program that he's been slowly building at NC State, Dave Dorn's name is going to be attached to Nebraska in some form or fashion. I don't think he's going to be a number one. He's not a top tier candidate for Nebraska, but that's not usually how this works. Sometimes it'll get down to that second tier. That's how Tennessee came about for Dave Dorn. That's how Ole Miss came about for Dave Dorn. And in both cases, he's stuck with NC State. Obviously, there's raises that go along with it. So Nebraska is something to keep an eye on if that coaching search goes in a way that could end up there. And there'd be nothing wrong with going with Dorn. Young, connections, and if you give him time, maybe he can do the same thing at Nebraska. But for the course of the season, I really don't think it's much of a story, and he's not going to be distracted or whatever by this Nebraska story. And he even said it on Monday during his press conference, like, man, I'm here for this team. I'm trying to cash this thing out with this team, so I'm focused on that, and I believe him.
Two things. First of all, how dare you suggest Matt Rule should not be the top candidate for Nebraska?
Don't make me spit out my coffee.
That is a coach that is, needs to come back to the collegiate level, is on the hot seat. Listen, he was very good in college, Nebraska fans. There's nothing to lose here. Just go for broke. Come on, please. I need this in my life right now. Please. I just need this to happen. Okay. Anyway, I will say this about Dave Doran. He doesn't strike me as the type of guy that would put up with a lot of what being the Nebraska head coach would entail, right? I could see him getting pretty annoyed pretty early at maybe some of the media questions or like the fan pushback or whatever it is. Like, imagine him critiquing the fans at all at any point. Like, I don't know. That's gonna. I don't know that that's the best fit. They're going to be probably a little more impatient than less at this point because of how long they've been waiting for Scott Frost to make this magical turnaround happen. And I just don't know that Dave strikes me as the type of dude that would be like chomping at the bit to take that job. I don't know. I know money is money. I get all of that. But I'm telling you, like, you'd have to offer me a lot more money, I think, for me to put up with that. Like maybe Texas A&M Jimbo money.
Given what the Big Ten's making, I could see them rolling out the truck. I mean, doubling it easily. But anyway, speaking of Jimbo Fisher, shout out to David Hale of ESPN for putting a wonderful thread together highlighting the Jimbo Fisher non-Jameis Winston years and how he has continuously missed on quarterback prospects. And that's why his record at Texas A&M is the same record, essentially the same record as Kevin Sumlin in the first 5 years.
You know what I said the day he was hired, and I maintain this. And by the way, shout out to Stuart Mandel of The Athletic, whose article today reminded me that they actually gave him a bump in guaranteed money this past, I think it was 2 years ago, I think. It was either last year or 2 years ago. And like, the thing about it is, it's all, I know pride is a thing for Jimbo and he wants to be great or whatever, but like, in what way would that contract incentivize any rational human being to do anything other than just sit on the sideline and play games on their phone? Like, that's what I'd be doing. What are you going to do about it? Fire me? Don't care.
Don't care.
I still get my money.
That's going to wrap it up for this edition of the ACC Panic Room. We will see you all this weekend talking about the Week 3 action.